broadcasting from across the North American continent of the Terran Empire, bringing you our unpopular Star Trek opinions since 2020. This is Code 47.
Back again with the Code 47 podcast. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Oh my goodness. I love it. You just took the reins. No, it's bad. I'm Charlie. You know who I am. You guys probably also know Katie as well if you listen to SFU Prime, as we so fondly call it sometimes. She's a recurrent guest host over there with Todd and myself. And now she's over here on the Code 47 podcast where we talk about Star Trek. And Katie and I have known each other for a couple of years through the cosplay con circuit. Katie is an artist, she's a photographer, and she is a Trekker, which I've really just learned a little bit more about in depth, recently as we agreed to have you on the show. So Katie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. Tell, in case there are people who listen to the show that maybe don't listen to SFU, go ahead and tell people a little bit about yourself and kind of your Trek prodigy or pedigree. There we go. Pedigree.
Well, I joined the Trekky universe a little bit later than some. I remember watching a couple of the movies when I was younger, but I didn't get access to the actual TV show. My favorite one, my mom and aunt actually had me watch because I'm obsessed with whales. And so they had me watch the one with Spock where whales are actually aliens and they have to talk to, I don't even remember which one it was called, but definitely my favorite Star Trek movie just because of that, because I love whales. And then when I met my spouse while we were dating, he learned I hadn't actually watched any of the TV shows. And so we started with TNG and then it just kind of grew from there.
Awesome, and blossomed into the Trekkery of you now being here with me. So yeah, we've got an action-packed show. We added a little half segment. We haven't done news for a while because we used to kind of incorporate news into the show, but it was it makes more sense to kind of bring it back as segment half before segment one when we get something really big, which we did. We got a big announcement early last week. About the spring actually headed into summertime schedule for the Star Trek universe, which is a new branded name of Star Trek offerings that we see over on Paramount Plus. So we got a confirmation that Picard will finally drop. Was initially supposed to be in February. Now it's going to be a little overlap with the end of Discovery. Discovery's coming back to finish its season on February 10. They've got 6 episodes left. They're going to, kind of have the spot. This is going to be interesting to see when these are, well, I would say when these are going to be on. That's really old school thinking to me, because stuff is on when it's on. That's the streaming world. But yeah, February 10th through 24, Discovery will be standalone. Starting on March 3 through March 17, it will share with Picard. Picard episodes 1, 2, and 3 will drop. Picard has a 10 episode season, which is going to take us through May 5. And then it'll overlap at the beginning of Strange New Worlds, which is the big announcement I was waiting on. I've just been so hungry for this show. You know what I mean? So this is huge. Strange New Worlds is going to kind of carry us through the summertime, which is amazing. And then this article kind of goes on to hint about some stuff that we're going to see later in the year, including Lower Decks again, which again, I somewhat challenged. I know that I've got to go back. I know I've got to go back and watch it. And Katie and Todd and I have done a little back and forth. When I did the show with my previous co-hosts, they were not fans. I don't know if I was swayed by what they were saying versus kind of how I should be looking at it myself, but I feel
I'm gonna set it up so we're gonna watch it again, and we're gonna watch it together, because I do think you need to have someone who can have a better appreciation. Well, I don't want to say appreciation. I understand if you don't like the show, that's fine. But I don't see how you can't like it, because you have such a great sense of humor, and you're not one of those. Well, yeah, you love Star Trek, but you also love the stupidity of Star Trek. I mean, because let's face it, there's some absurdity there.
Oh yeah.
And I feel that's what Lower Deck just loves to really get into.
Right.
And just So I can understand where there's some like Star Trek fans who are really like about the love of it, and they kind of poo-poo and try to ignore all of the silliness
Right.
of Star Trek.
It's got to be too serious.
Right.
Yeah,
And so you
exactly.
get that absurdity and you get that adult humor and kind of the acknowledgement of like, oh, yeah, you know what?
Right.
There was a muck monster that was just trapped on a planet that killed, one of the main characters in TNG just because they didn't like him.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You know what? That's fair. Let's you and I could do an episode that's just lower decks. Like we could
Yes.
say, hey, we're gonna quickly blast through. Maybe it's both seasons. Maybe it's just season 2, which was the one that was kind of the bone of contention. So
maybe we'll just call it Lower Decks Heels and Feels, and we'll just watch the first two seasons, and then we'll just kind of go over the overall feeling of it and what your final thoughts were.
This is well, you may have just extended your run by another
That's
episode
fine.
because just to let you know, Katie is going to be on with us for 4 episodes, which we turn into 5 because we're going to jump in and talk about Star Trek Insurrection, which we've not talked about a movie in a long time. So with that we might do a what would you want to call the segment?
Heels and Feels. I think that's a good way to say it.
Heels and Feels. Well, I think we're going to have to do that after we do this. I like it. So I'm going to change the schedule. That's a great idea. So anyway, to wrap up the news story, Katie, your thoughts about this schedule? It's pretty ambitious, don't you think?
It's very ambitious, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of what Disney's doing with their Star Wars, where they're just like, we're just going to make an entire network of Star Wars shows and, trying all of this lore together. And it's one thing when it's Disney, who is, this mega corporation who owns 80% of the media we consume. It's another thing when it's Paramount Plus and it's doing this kind of stuff where I'm like, do you have the reason? Like, I love it. It's ambitious, but I'm just I'm wondering if we're going to get the quality if they're pushing stuff out this quickly or trying to build this up, like if they've really thought it through. So as I'm cautiously excited about the stuff that's coming forward.
Okay. Fair. Very fair. I like that. So gotcha. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, because I always try to name the episode as we're talking. So this would be a set up. I'm just trying to put it. So I'm going to call this a approach to Heels and Feels. We'll start with that and see if we come back to something else. So anyway, this is super cool. So obviously Prodigy is on now. That's gonna take a break, lead into Discovery, and then we're kind of off to the races. So well, good. All right, wrapping that up, let's get into speaking about Prodigy. This is where kind of the rubber meets the road, because we have had some conversations when Katie's been over there on SFU Prime about her disdain for a certain character in Star Trek Prodigy. But right now we'll talk, perhaps somewhat briefly about these 2 episodes. We have episodes 7 and 8, still of season 1. Katie, I will let you read the description for episode 7. Go nuts.
All right. So it's First Contact, and that's CON-TACK or CT. It says, when a mentor from Dal's past persuades him to use their Federation cover for personal gain, they quickly discover Starfleet has protocols for a reason.
Womp womp. Not at all surprising that Dal, who is not Katie's favorite Star Trek character of all time, was basically raised by a don't really know how this got included, a Ferengi.
Yes.
I'm still kind of scratching my head because we've now learned that the Protostar ended up in the Delta Quadrant, that Chakotay was the captain, and now we don't know where he is. But the ship was left abandoned on this mining planet, where we find out even in this episode that Dal was raised by this Ferengi character. And if I was smart, I would have brought up the link so I could not say this Ferengi character because I don't remember the Ferengi character's name. Well, it's not really. It's not really that important. So regardless, I know it's just absolutely terrible. But it's not at all surprising that he has kind of the scammer Ferengi.
Damian Nandi.
Oh, there you go. Very good.
I think.
Who is there could be something deeper to this. So this is a female Ferengi who is is kind of contrary. At least I thought it was a female character.
Oh, no, she is.
Yeah, who is, in the Ferengi society, women don't wear clothing, women don't leave the house, women don't do much of anything at all. But of course,
Yes.
it was really explored in Deep Space Nine with Moogie, who is the mother
Mhm.
to Quark and Rom. That females are clearly just as capable of men as they are in all societies, including ours. Duh, because that's just what anybody who's not a moron knows. But why is there a Ferengi in the Delta Quadrant? Are they still in the Delta Quadrant? I mean, there's some mysteries that and again, geared that this is a kid's show. Maybe kids aren't going to nitpick it the way that I am because it's me. So it's kind of that suspension of disbelief part that maybe I just need to get over the hump myself. But yeah, this was a great example of how first contact rules are legit for a reason. Even for this crew of weirdo alien kids that we've got going on.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I really loved the aliens that they introduced. I don't remember what Brock called them, but the idea of them with them using like vibrations and seismic activity to communicate, it was absolutely beautifully done. I don't think it's wrong to nitpick them for introducing a female Ferengi, Nandi, who by all accounts is completely bucking the trend of the Ferengi culture. So I'm guessing there's something to do with that there. And also the fact that she was such a big part of Del's life, apparently, and there was never any mention of her before this. And we're 7 episodes in.
Right.
And it's, again, one of the problems I have with Del, where I feel like if they would have introduced this concept before, I've been like, okay, well, there's a reason why he's an utter asshole. It's because he was raised by a self-serving Ferengi. Okay, maybe I can get over it then. But instead they're just like, oh yeah, by the way, here's this random backstory. I know we've been telling you that he was basically raised on this slave planet, but no, he actually has this character that that lived with him, or he lived with for and raised him for quite a while. So he obviously wasn't actually on the slave planet for very long.
Right.
And it felt like very sloppy writing to me.
I hear, and in reading the Memory Alpha article, I'm reminded, and shame on me for forgetting, Grant Nagasek granted Ferengi females the right to wear clothing in an amendment to the Ferengi Bill of Opportunities in 2374. So that was during DS9. Okay. Which was meant to act as like a snowball effect to allow them to, earn profit and become part of the workforce, so on and so forth. So yeah, I had totally forgotten about that. I was a little bit more, and don't forget at the end of Deep Space Nine, Rom becomes Grand Nagus, so those things probably continued as well. But again, not really understanding what she's doing in the Delta Quadrant. So yeah, I feel like that's kind of, I'm a big fan of canon. I like those kind of things to be adhered to because it just, I feel like I've always said about canon, and a lot of people have a lot of different thoughts about it. But for me, I like canon because it really does give you a chance to kind of wrap your hands around what's going on and not have things contradictory, this and that. I mean, you could go on and on about Star Wars and Legends and the extended universe, and it's a debate for another time. But yeah, right. I would love to think, or it would certainly make me happy if there was some kind of follow-up to this where we found out kind of what she's doing out there. But anyway, not a bad episode. I enjoyed it. Even with the sloppy writing, it does provide, I think, some connectivity between Dal and I keep forgetting all the other female
Gwen.
Gwen, thank you. God, I got to get better at that. Dal and Gwen, they share some heartache over their terrible parental figures. So it's character development. So episode 8 is Time Amok. This is not the first stealing of. Is every title in this basically kind of a lift? I wonder, from something else, because First Contact was a movie and it was an episode. Amok Time was obviously a very famous episode. One before that was Kobayashi, like Kobayashi Maru, which wasn't. But anyway, it's a familiarity thing, I suppose. So anyway, USS Protostar is fractured in time by an anomaly in a plot line directly stolen from Voyager. Oh, it doesn't say that, but it's true. Hologram Janeway must synchronize the disjointed crew in order to save this ship before it destructs. So yes, it's a borrowed storyline. It was season 7 of Voyager. The episode Shattered, if I'm not mistaken, was the name of it. And it was the same thing. Chakotay was the lead character in that one. He had to go through and he recruited one of the Janeways from one of the timelines, and they had a gel that could bring stuff back into synchronization. And that all worked for that episode, but this didn't exactly. This did it in a way that I think really helped with the development of, and again, going to screw up the character name.
I think it's Brock.
Brock,
the little Brock character.
Yeah, The Rock, which, and again, that was just something we talked about when the show was coming out. She is a Brinkar, which comes from a Star Trek novel series, The New Frontier, which one of the main characters was from that race. And yeah, they're just giant, basically. It's they're all a race of people that are like the Thing from the Fantastic Four, big rocky people. But this one is a young female, which I think is a pretty good twist, as opposed to being like a big, like, we want you to be the security chief because you're big. So this is kind of a juxtaposition of that character, because she, at the end of it, ends up saving the day by she and the hologram Janeway work together over an undisclosed amount of time for her to teach herself to be the chief engineer in order to solve the problem that brings everything back together. That I liked. I thought that was pretty cool.
And it was, again, one of those things where I felt like they had a really great idea, because I really liked seeing Rock come out of her shell and be able to develop that. But it felt like the ending was rushed, where
right.
You see this scene of her saying, I can't. And then the next thing you know, she's had completely built the warp time distributor thingy.
Right.
And then also figured out how to get Janeway's memory core back on. And I was like, I would have liked to see maybe a montage more of, instead of having Gwen fighting the robot guy from her dad, like, that was really cool. I loved that.
Right.
But instead of having all of that going on, maybe spending some more time with Rock and the development of her gaining that confidence, instead of it just being like, we see this really sad moment of her like missing her friends and going through that, but then it's just like, and now she's over it, and now it's done. And I was like, and it was, again, one of those things where it just felt like the writing was lacking.
Kind of let you down that road. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and there was certainly a tendency within Voyager, like it as much as I do, that it was well, it's 8:47 and the show's going to be over in 2 minutes. We're going to have to wrap this up, and it was just a very convenient blurb, where maybe it was too big of a story for a single segment, or something else needed to be cut. So that's editing and pacing, which is obviously critical to any storytelling. But you're right. I did like the end result, where she gained some good character development, and we saw that she found a calling. But she, they had to work together as a crew, which is obviously, it's a big focus of this, is them all coming together and learning how to collaborate. So I like this one too. I liked it better than the other one, I would say, for sure. But the question then becomes, we've got this wrapping up just in a few weeks. Where do you think the story's headed? I mean, what do you think the rest of the season is really going to give us?
I think that they're going to see a little bit more, as far as probably finding out that Gwen's dad is the one who stole the ship and then hid it, or then it crash landed on the slave planet, and he was the one who had to do with that. And so then there'll be a mystery of probably finding out that Janeway's original crew is still alive, or there's something leading to them to believe that the crew is still alive, and they'll have to kind of continue on that front, because I don't think we've heard the last from Gwen's father, obviously. And and the show is called Prodigy, and she is supposedly the prodigy. Mm-hmm. So I imagine that we're going to see a little bit more background with that.
Right, exactly. So would you say, as someone who has not really enjoyed the character of Dal, did these episodes help or hinder your feelings about the character? What do you think?
He wasn't in these episodes as much, so that was helpful.
I like you better when you're not around. There you go.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, because the one time he was there in Time of Muck, he shows up and he had noticed that his crew was missing. And then was like,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, basically like, F off, Janeway. I'm playing, it sounds like some sort of version of Snake.
Yeah. Oh my God, he is the Star Trek Bart Simpson. Star Trek Bart Simpson. There you go. Yeah, that could be a title.
That's the thing that really just bothered, is he reminds me so much of the characters that I saw in cartoons growing up, of just this really egotistical, incompetent little boy. And then as the little girl watching these shows, having to see the girls that I related to, like Gwen and Rock, having to be more confident and having to grow as characters so that they could sport this kind of spoiled kid who just came in with the audacity, assuming that he could be the leader.
Right, exactly correct. Oh man, my. Well, more to come on that. But time to move on to segment 2. And I'm not gonna make you sing it, because Peter always jumped in and sang it. But if you want to, I'm not going to stop you. But yeah, segment 2. It's been a long road.
We'll just leave it at that.
We'll just leave it at
Maybe
that.
maybe
Yes.
next time. I wasn't prepared to
Okay.
sing this time.
Okay. All right. And I can psych yourself up. No, there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've moved beyond season 2 of TOS. May it rest in peace. It's still out there if you want to go watch it. But no, the intention is that, you know, since the beginning of the show, we've been moving through kind of a season at a time. But we did all the season 1s, and now we're into doing all the season 2s. So we've gotten through TOS, and now we're headed into season 2 of Star Trek. The Next Generation ran, let's say, I'm just going to pluck some random facts out the top of my head. This was the 1988 to 89 season. It was cut short by a 1988 writer's strike, so it is 22 episodes instead of the 26, which is like crazy. The shows used to have 26 episodes in a season. When now, and it's funny because I've said it time and again, now I'm happy when a season is 10 episodes because it's like it's just enough. You know what I'm saying? It's just enough so things don't get so, even though you'll still get a filler here, a filler there, even with the best of shows. But yeah, with 22 to 26, or even like with season 1 of TOS, which was 30 episodes, but again, that was 50 years ago. It's just too much. You're going to get some serious clunkers in there here and there. But at any rate, let's hop right into it. So season 2. I'll do the description of this one. Episode 1 is The Child, which is a 100% recycled script from Star Trek Phase 2 from the 1970s, which was not produced. It became Star Trek the Motion Picture. But this was absolutely lifted off of that because in the movie, we had Star Trek the Motion Picture. We had Will Decker, who was Stephen Collins. We had Ilea, who was the late Persis Kambata, and they were the Riker and the Troy. That was who Riker and Troy was modeled after. But at any rate, so this, it aired in November of 1988, directed by Rob Bowman and written by Jaron Summers and John Pavel and Maurice Hurley. Dr. Catherine Pulaski, Diana Muldaur, who we saw twice in TOS in 2 different roles as a guest star, so this was her return to the franchise, joins the Enterprise while Lieutenant Geordi LaForge, now the chief engineer, prepares the Enterprise to transport a dangerous plague specimen. Counselor Deanna Troi spontaneously becomes pregnant and gives birth to a mysterious child. Wow. There's a lot going on here.
Yes. And, I'm
Go ahead,
gonna throw it out. Obviously trigger warnings for lack of consent and sexual assault. Because this episode,
absolutely.
I went back and watched a little bit of the first season just to kind of like prep myself and kind of remind myself of the characters. And I'm so glad I did, because I think if I would have just jumped right back into this episode and watched these 5 episodes, I would have been so angry. I would have been like, Charlie, I'm not doing this anymore. I can't.
Oh no. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, good. Well, thank God.
Yes. And it definitely, like, there were episodes, because we watched the first 5, there were definitely ones that hit better than others, but just the complete lack of wherewithal that they had in their treatment of Troy and their treatment of Pulaski. I'm like, can we please have one female character that isn't just an absolute bench or just there for sexual appeal and plot development? Because there was really no reason for them to have this entire segue with Troy watching her get impregnated. But I mean, because you see this little creature light thing go up the sheets, and then her doing this weird moaning thing, and then waking up, and I'm like, this is awkward.
Super.
And we're not even going to go into the birth of this child and the faces and noises that they had her making there.
Right.
I'm like, that it was incredibly just disrespectful and completely mitigated the difficulty of childbirth. And it has this kind of like magical childbirth of like, oh, it's not that hard. It's not. I have so many rants. I mean, we're not even gonna Riker with who's the father line. I was like,
or Worf, and he's like, well, obviously we have an abortion because what? Why is that so obvious? Oh my god. Well,
the thing is, at least, like, Worf, I can understand Worf's perspective because he's coming at it from security officer, where he's looking at it going, something has impacted our crew and assaulted our crew, a crew member. It has done nothing to show that it is not dangerous. So why would we consider it not dangerous?
Right.
I mean, and I do respect the fact that, Troy said she wanted to go through the pregnancy. We're going to completely go past the fact of like once she saw the baby and she's sitting there holding her stomach and she's like, no, I'm keeping. I'm like,
Yeah, it was a
okay.
Papa don't preach kind of moment. There's no
Oh,
doubt.
definitely, definitely. And then, she says, "Can we?" And Picard goes, "Okay, that's the only opinion. Basically, that's the only opinion that counts. Then we're keeping it.
Right. Yeah,
Fine."
exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
He stepped up. Good for you,
right.
Picard.
And
Good.
I think that they could have done the entire thing with the weird plasma virus or whatever it was.
The plasma plague or something.
Yeah, plasma plague. That's what they could have done, that entire storyline and developed that storyline without having the weird kid. Because
Right.
the only point of having that kid there was so that then the virus or the plague could go start replicating when it wasn't supposed to be replicating, and then it had to die. And then you have Data, Riker, and Pulaski just standing there watching Troy bawl her eyes out after her kid just died, and just like, okay, I guess we'll leave now.
Yeah. Well, I got a thing or whatever. So deuces. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh! And the this was for these 5 episodes for me. It was funny because when I was a kid and watched the show, I would watch the show with my mother, and she said, "I'm always on Beverly Crusher." This was the season that she was gone, and she came back. So, but my reference in particular, she said, "So I'm always on Hair Watch for Dr. Crusher," because she always, Gates McFadden always wore a wig as Dr. Crusher, and it would change, it would get longer, it would get shorter. With Troy, I was kind of on Makeup Watch for these first 5 episodes because, and I even messaged you when I was watching this first one.
Yep.
I'm like, you got to tune in and look at Troy. She absolutely looks like the Joker with that suit. Like her face was white, and then her neck was like a normal skin color, but it was like liquid paper white. And I think it gets better over these 5 episodes, but it never again. It wasn't an issue in the first season, didn't end up being an issue in the 3rd season, but they were really struggling with her look. And of course she has a lot of big changes in this episodes. Riker has a beard. Woo! Geordi got a promotion. He's chief engineer now. Worf is now officially security chief. So they both have different uniforms. Picard's hair is incrementally longer, which is weird. I don't know, that's something I would pick out. Wesley got an actual outfit with a comm badge, so he looks like he's not just wearing that sweater.
But they still kept like the sweater material on the top of his outfit because you can't quite get rid of the sweater because I guess that's his identifier.
The sweater is my identity. Oh, that could be another great title. Oh boy, I love it. The sweater is my identity. I almost like that one better. So overall, it was an interesting way to set the tone. The show definitely feels very different in season 2. But yeah, you had a couple of plot lines that didn't greatly, complement each other. So
no.
Yeah, but again, I mean, the whole season is still about the show kind of finding its feet. So anyway, moving on. Episode 2. Go. This one is you. Go for it.
All right, it says the Enterprise becomes trapped in a spatial phenomenon. Here they are subjected to unusual experiments by the whim of a being unlike any other they have encountered before.
My. Nagilum, actually voiced by, there was a show in the 80s with actor, okay, more easily identified. There was a show in the 70s called Soap. It was like a soap opera-ish kind of. It was where Billy Crystal got to start and a bunch of other characters. But it was a family, and it was all their, soap opera-y kind of stuff going on. The father was an actor called Richard Mulligan, who voiced the Nagilum character in this. I remember reading this book. He voiced the Nagilum character in this episode, and Nagilum spelled forwards instead of backwards is Mulligan, so Richard Mulligan. There's your little useless trivia.
I did not realize that.
Well, it's a weird thing that I read in my, I had the Star Trek: The Next Generation compendium when I was a teenager and read it cover to cover a million times, so I know all these little useless facts. So you're welcome, everybody. So super forgettable episode for me.
Yeah, it just was kind of random.
Yeah, big space hole, malevolent space critter. The big space hole thing kind of crept back in Discovery a few episodes back because they got trapped in a space anomaly or whatever and had to find their way out. So I'm like, it's a trope. I don't know how you could do it any better. So I just find the episode very forgettable, particularly, wedged between, I think is some of the better episodes that come after. So any other thoughts?
I think that it was kind of nice for Picard to kind of show the lengths that he would go, because he literally tells this creature, instead of letting you kill half of my crew to experiment with how they react to death, I'm just gonna freaking nuke my entire ship.
Right.
So like that is definitely like Chaos Goblin energy of, you know what, if I can't have it, no one will.
Right.
And I think they get down to like the last 5 seconds to turn off the self-destruct before they figure out if the little entity had actually let them go. And I think someone makes a comment to Riker about how like he really played chicken with that and left it to the last line, and Riker's like, did he? Kind of saying like,
Right.
I think he would have let us blow up. I think he would have
Right.
just completely taken out the entire crew rather than let him have it.
And you know what? In that situation, I think as a captain, I would do the same thing, wouldn't you?
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
if everybody's going to die anyway, let's go on our own terms. It'll be over quickly,
Mhm.
and there's not the suffering. So, ooh, yeah, I know. But all those, impossible decisions that the
Mhm.
Starfleet captain has to make.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. I like that part of it too. Now that you mention it. So,
Mhm.
moving on to episode 3, Elementary Dear Data. Did I read the last one, or did you read the last
I
one?
read the
Look at
last one, yeah. So you
Oh
read this
my
one.
God! Look at this. I just senior moments all over the place. So this episode directed by Rob Bowman, Brian Allen Lane, who's not a Star Trek name I recognize, so he might have been a one-off. This was out in December of 1988, the Christmas episode, well, one of the several. After Lieutenant Commander Data easily solves an ordinary Sherlock Holmes holodeck mystery, LaForge asks the computer to make Holmes a villain capable of defeating him. Whoops. The resultant Professor Moriarty, actor Daniel Davis, soon becomes far more powerful than expected. Oh, this is a good one. Oh my God, I love this. Absolutely. They put some thought into building some great holodeck sets. That would be, the 1890s London. Dr. Pulaski gets involved as as you're seeing her start to rapidly evolve as a foil for Data. We did see that in, a couple of episodes back in the season premiere, how she's like, well, I don't really, and you saw a little bit of her disdain even in the second episode as well, where she's like, well, Data's an android, and well, he's not a real,
referring to him
yeah.
as it on several
Yeah,
occasions,
exactly.
even though like Starfleet has designated him a living entity, like living intelligent entity.
Exactly. And he's a graduate of Starfleet and the second officer of the ship.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just super duper disrespectful. But at least she kind of puts her money where her mouth is and saying, well, I don't think Data could really solve a mystery that he hasn't read. And then she gets and it ends up getting caught in the plot line with the Moriarty character, who is absolutely great. I don't think I'd ever seen Daniel Davis in anything. He went on to be, my God, was he on that sitcom The Nanny? Wasn't he on that show?
I feel like he was the butler in something.
Yes,
That might have been it. Yeah.
He buttled. That was his second career, butler. I absolutely love this episode. This was great, and it did spawn a sequel episode in season 6, where Moriarty comes back and does a little bit more of it. So yeah. So what'd you think?
I absolutely love anything with Data.
Right.
Honestly, is it Brett Spencer?
Spiner. Brett Spiner.
Spiner. Yeah, Brett Spiner. Just phenomenal with how he treats Data's character. So him and Geordi, I love that combination. I know that with Pulaski, they were trying to do kind of like a McCoy Spock back and forth,
Totally.
but it just kind of always makes her come off as just, again, an absolute bench, and she's giving me eugenicist vibes, honestly. Like, where I'm like, the way that you're talking and the things that you say, I'm just curious if like maybe some of her ancestors came from a time in Germany at some point sometimes, because it's just real rough.
Yeah, She is kind of really rough around the edges and tough to like.
And
yeah.
I did I was gonna say I always appreciate the dynamics between Geordi and Data. There we go. Like in the first season there was an episode where they had him and they were painting, and
oh my God, that was exactly
so
what I was
Geordi was
of.
trying to tell Data how to paint, and I don't remember, it was Riker who
Yeah, it
came
was
in who
Riker.
said, a blind man trying to teach a computer how to paint.
Right. He said that's got to be worth a couple pages in somebody's book.
Yeah, exactly. Like that was so fantastic. And both of them being like, oh yeah, I guess it's kind of just like doing their thing. Like those two are
Right.
living their best life and I am here for it.
I
I
know. I
do
dig it.
wish that they would have let Data solve the problem because I feel like that would have been a better foil for Pulaski's behavior and for
Right.
her outlook on Data because Picard is the one who kind of came in to solve it. And I get it. He's the main character.
Right.
Sure, he's the captain. So that part was a little sad for me, but I did love just like you were saying the sets, and it was a really fun kind of, it's a filler episode technically, but sometimes when you're doing this kind of stuff and you're going with these heavy episodes where like, they nearly destroyed the entire crew the episode before, you need that breath.
let's make you laugh. Let's give you a little funny ha-ha and something to enjoy. So there was not a lot of enjoyment for you personally in this next episode as you were messaging me about this last night. Oh my God. So I'm gonna let you take it away. It's all you.
Oh, okay. The Enterprise is caught up in the schemes of a flamboyant space rogue on the run, while Data explores humor with the help of a holodeck comedian.
Joe Piscopo.
Yeah, Joe Piscopo. Excuse me.
Joe. The name of the episode is The Outrageous Okana, by the way.
Yes.
And this was a character. He did go on to have a sequel of sorts in one of the comics, though I don't remember what the storyline was. But this gave us a cameo. It was so funny. I was watching it with April yesterday. I'm like, oh, that's Terry. She was Lois and Clark. She was in the Desperate Housewives. Terry, what's her? Terry Hatcher. Terry Hatcher was the and boy, what a. I really just didn't get this. She's the transporter chief who beams him on board. And, he's a rogue and he's flirty and he's charming, or so to speak. And so he's charming Riker and Worf and Wesley standing there. And then he walks over and he starts, hardcore hitting on Terry Hatcher's character. And she totally rebuffs him. And then like 20 minutes later, he's going to her quarters and she's dressed down and ready to party. So it's like.
And again, Brett Spinner's face, though, when he sees her and he's just like.
What?
I love just the subtle sass that you get from Data sometimes.
Yeah. I know. But yeah, this was an episode. It was like, you don't see a ton of this in Star Trek. You don't see a lot outside of your big institutions, Starfleet and the Federation and the Klingons and the Romulans and da-da-da-da-da. But, there are other folks out there in the space lanes doing space stuff. So yeah, he's a Han Solo with a terrible mullet, by the way. Oh my God.
So bad. It's so bad.
Such an 80s style. But yeah, he was a total I don't know if are you familiar at all with the Star Wars now non-canonical novel The Shadows of the Empire?
I have heard of it. I don't think I've read it though.
There was it took place, and again it's non-canonical, but it took place between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and it's supposed to be what happened in that 6 months, year period, which is now being very heavily diced up in the Star Wars comics right now. But there was a character in there who was kind of a Han Solo knockoff, or what my friend John, our other college roommate and original secret friend, has always called the Kmart Han Solo. His name was Dash Rendar, and Okana is basically Dash Rendar, to the point that the outfit almost looks the same. But Dash Rendar, and again, just trust me, go Google it. Dash Rendar still had better hair, because I just absolutely could not.
I'm Googling it right now.
Yes, yeah, you'll see Dash Rendar. Yeah, The Shadows of the Empire is, and I won't get too much into it, but it's an absolutely fascinating.
Oh, much better hair. Yeah,
it's
definitely much better hair.
Fascinating piece. It was the summer of 1996. Lucasfilm came up with a book, soundtrack, video game, an action figure line. And a novel and a comic, but no movie. So it was like all the things that you would expect from a spinoff, except for the movie. And it was, we were all Star Wars fans at the time were pretty much enthralled with it. It was amazing. But anyway, yeah, this one goes on to have a very hackneyed plot line that caused you to almost ruin your computer. As you
did. I did tell you that I think I was honor bound to throw my laptop because I'm watching this, and of course I'm already this Okana dude. I'm just done with immediately. As soon as he shows up, I'm done with him. And it was very obvious that it was that, late 80s men writing what women think are sexy. And me just going,
so bad.
I'm pretty sure I'm attracted to men, and I might not be anymore. After watching that.
This show made me gay. How did it do it?
I'm already queer, but I think I have some news for my spouse.
You're a funk.
Sorry, Aaron, we're done, babe.
I think I fell off the scales of gay.
Yes.
Oh my God, there you go. I will not put that as a title of the episode because I feel like that could get me.
The scales of gay.
Get the scales. I feel like that could get me in some trouble, so I'm gonna back off that. But it can be the title within our hearts because it's a great one. So his obvious maleness was and his handling of the character just kind of
really bad. Yes. And it was kind of funny to watch Riker get a run for his money as far as creep factor goes. The looks that Wesley kept giving him in the background, I was like, Will, I want to know what directions they were giving you to have him looking at him with some sort of weird like wonder and attraction. Because I'm like, is Wesley discovering something about himself within this moment?
Is like, Wesley on the scales of gay? Is that
yeah, exactly. Because there were moments where he's just like. And I'm like, why are you staring at him like that? That is weird.
Okay, I lied. The Scales of Gay is now the name of the episode. I will...
and no shame to Wesley. If that's his type, that's his type.
Right.
Go for it, buddy.
Gotcha.
But yes, I was watching it and, I'm already laughing and kind of, making fun of it. And then there's these two captains that show up and they're like, I want him because he broke the law here and I want him because he broke the law here. And the Picard at one point is like, tell me exactly what his crimes are. And the guy, I swear to God, if you drag up your pregnant daughter, I will throw my and I didn't even get laptop out. And the guy grabs someone off screen and pulls in this young, for-shamed woman, super pregnant, obvious like fake belly pregnancy.
Right.
And he's like, he impregnated my daughter, and by honor, I'm like, please tell me that you all didn't get to the point of a spacefaring race and kept your 1950s concepts of equality and gender normality.
All he needed was the shotgun,
That was literally. And then you find out later it's like, oh no, actually it wasn't him that impregnated her or that she had slept with. Somehow it was the other guy's son who had been accused of, and it was this whole kind of the like Romeo and Juliet tied into it somehow, which never made any sense because I'm like, they're still gonna be pissed that you two are gonna get married and have a kid, so I don't think this is gonna magically fix anything.
Right, exactly. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was just very. And I think they tried to fix it a bunch by having like Picard keep mentioning like the backward or the regressive, morals and ideas of these cultures. But it still was like, that doesn't solve it. That doesn't.
Right.
You still wrote the episode and you still had it play out this way.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, very much a sign of the times and really not in a great way. So, so all right. So to wrap it up, episode 5 is Loud as a Whisper. From January, this was the first episode of the final year of the 80s in 1989, January 9, directed by Larry Shaw and Jacqueline Zambrano, also a name I've never heard, so obviously did not have great staying power. The crew plays host to a deaf telepathic ambassador, Howie Seago, who I believe is actually deaf. I read that.
Yep.
Yeah,
he is a producer as well, I believe.
Oh, you know way more about him than I do. So anyway, so he mediates a difficult peace negotiation with the assistance of his trio of telepathic interpreters. This was one of those episodes that I feel like I didn't even see it until I became a real more serious fan when I was in high school, because I started out, I kind of sort of watched I think I watched all of season 1. I think I kind of fell off in season 2 and 3, though I got a bit here and there. And it wasn't, believe it or not, all the way until season 5 that I was like a dyed in the wool. I used to tape them and pause out the commercials. That was always my shtick. So I could go back and study them and watch them because I loved them so much. But this is one that I'm like, I read about it in the Next Generation compendium that I was telling you about that I had. And I was like, I've never seen this episode. And of course there was no way to access it because they were in syndication. So it would happen by and I would see it, but I had no way to find it when I wanted to see it. So this episode was kind of a mystery to me. And yeah, the chorus, because that he communicated with telepathically, and one of them was love and logic and romance, and oh my god, I got to go to the link because I don't remember. There's 3 of them, but they all represent. One was his passion, and one was his
one was
logic.
basically his libido. And then one was his like logic and reasoning, and then of course the woman was the harmony and
Oh
unification
boy,
that
of
brought
course.
everyone together in his sympathy.
Right.
So
But yeah, he immediately gets eyes on Troy, and like I said, I think by this episode her clown makeup had been tempered down a little bit, which is good because you could see her coming with the lights off in the dark.
Well, with
that
that first one, they definitely had given her like the blush of childbirth.
Oh, yes, of course. Oh my goodness. So yeah. So what did you? Like I said, it was a weird offbeat episode. During the episode, the chorus is killed off because he's trying to negotiate between these two factors. One of them comes to the peace meeting but decides to shoot up the place, and the chorus is zapped in one of the weirdest special effects I feel like I've ever seen.
I feel like they kind of figured out how to make that special effect. They were like, "We're gonna do this."
Yeah, it's gonna be great, and it just so they get zapped, but they freeze mid zap, and then you see them dissolve, like the skin, and then the muscle, and then the skeleton. Just kind of, it's like a reverse transporter effect, and it was like. Why don't you just in the old show when somebody got phasered, it was just a blue beam and they went blink blink and they were gone. It wasn't the
right.
So it's like they were trying to like reinvent the wheel, and they invented the wheel as a square. It just did not work.
It was very strange.
But it was kind of cool because I feel like in the end of it, what Revon was going to do is when he does beam back down to the planet and was able to get the other two, the warring factions to the table, is that he was going to teach them ASL, sign language, which Data was helping him with on the ship, and so that they would all speak a common language. He says, well, I may be here for, this may take some time and whatever, but ultimately, I think it was a good message. I really do.
Yeah, and I think that really the only down part of this episode for me was the weird romance that he tried to have with Troy, because of course has to have some weird romance with Troy. I feel like every episode either someone is trying to get in Troy's pants or Riker's trying to get in someone's pants. So it just is really the juxtaposition of which one is happening per episode.
Which pair of pants is being juxtaposed?
Yes.
I can't make that the title, but it would be a great one. Which pair of pants is being juxtaposed? I can't even say it. Oh my god! The juxtaposition of pants.
There you go.
But that does not outweigh the scales of gay, so that stays.
But I enjoyed that Howie Seago was deaf, and so they brought in a deaf character to play, or they brought in a deaf individual to play a deaf character. He was using ASL. It wasn't some random like alien language that was made up, and it really showed the struggle of like trying to communicate, and when those communication avenues are removed, like how little our culture provides for those types of disabilities and for those differences if you're not part of the normal quote unquote kind of means of communication. That end scene with Pulaski and Geordi was a little weird to me because it felt like it was just kind of like shoved in there, like they needed time, and never
comes up again. It was filler within filler. It was so weird, weird.
It was one of those things where if they had just like a point earlier in the episode of Geordi being like, I know that I had said, because like literally the last time we hear him talking about his eyes is because he has this really beautiful, meaningful conversation with Howie's character as far as Ravi, is that the guy's name? I think it's Ravi or Rivi, the ambassador character.
Ravon, now I can't remember.
We'll just say Howie's character. He comes in and is talking about how he has his chorus and how they have worked to like build out this communication and how it helps him see the world and how his unique perspective helps him as an ambassador, as and as an interpreter.
Right.
And then Geordi's talking about how his sight and his visor help him see the world, and that basically like he wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. And then next scene that we see him, he's talking with the doctor about getting different implants and how she's like, well, I could give you your sight, like normal sight back. And there is no like transition between the two, and again does not help with the fact that she's been coming off really against Data, and now you have her coming off against Geordi's implant,
right?
And I'm like, again, I just have some questions about your background, babe.
Right, exactly. Yeah, do no. Yeah, why is as a physician do no harm? Or you seem to be interested in harming people or putting people down. You're right. She's she's the Star Trek bully. That's who she is. Character is Reva, by the way. I did click,
there we go.
I did click on the link. So yeah, interesting episode. Cool message about you are more powerful than you know when you take away your shtick. And you're right. That scene with Pulaski and Geordi could have been solved by him finally just coming back at the end and saying, you know what, my visor is awesome. I don't want to give it up. It's who I am. So thanks, but no thanks. But
or just,
that didn't happen. Yeah,
having him start the conversation of approaching the doctor, Pulaski, and saying, hey, I've been thinking about it and I would like to see if there are other options, or,
right.
I know I said that I really like this, but there is an immense amount of pain that comes with it. Can you help relieve that pain, or something to lead into that conversation? Because otherwise it does seem like it was very much out of the blue, and possibly because the first person you were talking in that scene is Pulaski. So it almost sounds like she's the one who initiated this conversation.
Right, exactly. He didn't come in and say, hey, it's really been keeping me up.
Even though I think later on she says, when you asked me about this, but that asking, that part of asking never actually happened. So it seems like it's just the weird timing. But overall, I thought it was a very, very good episode.
Totally, absolutely. Well, that is the show. Because this season only has 22 episodes, we've got them split up into 2 5s and 2 6s over the next. So we'll have another 5 to talk about next time. But oh my gosh, Katie, this was amazing. I'm really looking forward to continuing to work with you. And we've extended our run by an extra 2 episodes. I'm going to go. I'll go put the heels and the feels into the schedule. But with that, please take us out.
Yes. Well, I want to say farewell. Thank you for having me. And remember, wherever you go boldly.
Oh my goodness. Well, you're actually supposed to read this little blurb right here.
Oh, well, sorry. You didn't tell me that part.
It was right. Okay. Well, that's okay. Because I don't edit the show, well, you just do it now, and then you can come up with a second catchphrase at the end. So go for it.
Okay. All right. For more information about Starfleet International, please visit Grand Petoskey and Region 13 on Facebook.
Ooh, and then I can say my catchphrase. Friends, as always, thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring, and keep on trekking.
Well, fine. Captain Katie Pershawn signing off.
Code 47 is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for our great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, or the podcast platform of your choice. If you would like to be part of the conversation, visit our new Discord server, or join us on Facebook, or follow us at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends on YouTube, and don't forget to visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.